Help me! Ines Reyes screamed as the ER doors slammed open behind him. Rainwater poured off his jacket. His 6-year-old son, Mateo, hung limp in his arms, his soaked hoodie clinging to his tiny chest as every breath came out thin and broken. Please, Ines shouted, rushing to the front desk. He can't breathe. The woman behind the glass didn't stand. She didn't call a doctor. She barely looked up. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Insurance card and payment method, she said. Ines froze. He needs oxygen. Sir, I need payment verification first. Mateo's fingers tightened weakly around his father's shirt. Dad, caw. Ines threw his wallet onto the counter with shaking hands. Take it. Take everything. Just help him. The nurse swiped his card once, then again. Declined. Her face went flat. No payment verification, Sharon Pike said, loud enough for the waiting room to hear. No admission. A security guard stepped closer. Ines stared at her through the glass. You're telling me you're going to watch my son die over a card? Sharon finally looked at Mateo. Then she looked back at Ines. Step aside, sir. The waiting room went silent. Behind Sharon, a younger nurse in blue scrubs stopped with a phone pressed to her ear. Her eyes locked on Mateo's chest as it struggled to rise. She opened her mouth like she wanted to speak, but Sharon shot her one cold glance. Ines saw it. He also saw another family slip a credit card across the desk and get waved through immediately. Please, Ines said, softer now, just give him oxygen. Sharon turned to the security guard. Remove him from intake if he refuses to comply. That was when something changed in Ines. He stopped begging. He gathered Mateo tighter against his chest, backed away from the desk, and walked straight back into the storm. Behind him, Sharon reached for the next file like nothing had happened. Then, seconds after the doors closed, the younger nurse dropped the phone. Her voice cracked. Oh my God, they actually let him leave. Rain hammered the windshield, so hard Ines could barely see the road. Mateo, he said, gripping the steering wheel with one hand while holding his son's shoulder with the other. Hey, stay with me, buddy. A weak wheeze answered him from the back seat. The inhaler lay useless beside Mateo's leg. Ines fumbled with his phone, calling another urgent care clinic on speaker. We're at capacity, the receptionist said immediately. Storm outage flooded half the city. Try Memorial General. I just came from Memorial General. I'm sorry, sir. He slammed the phone down. Traffic lights blinked dead in the flooded streets. Tires sprayed water across the truck as he pushed through intersections that should have been impossible to cross safely. In the back seat, Mateo whispered, Dad. I'm here. Sorry. Ines looked back for half a second. For what? Mateo swallowed hard between breaths. I know medicine costs a lot. The words hit harder than the storm outside. No, Ines said instantly. No, don't say that. But Mateo had heard enough conversations. Too many late-night bills spread across kitchen counters. Too many apologies after overtime shifts disappeared when Ines stayed home during asthma flare-ups. And hospitals terrified him now. Ever since his mother died in one. The truck jolted through standing water as Ines wiped rain and tears from his face with the same shaking hand. Then his phone rang. Blocked number. Ines, a woman whispered. He recognized the younger nurse immediately. You need to get him somewhere else right now, she said quickly. His oxygen levels were crashing. You knew that and still let us walk out. There was silence on the line. Then, I'm sorry. Ines tightened his jaw. What is wrong with that place? Her breathing sounded nervous, rushed. This isn't the first time they've done this. A horn blared as Ines swerved around a stalled car. What are you talking about? There's a county emergency clinic on Halston Avenue, she said. Go there, they'll treat him. Why are you helping me? Another pause. Then quietly. Because they monitor who talks. The call disconnected. 20 minutes later, Ines skidded into the county clinic parking lot. Nurses were already rushing outside with a wheelchair after seeing Mateo through the windshield. But before Ines could lift his son out, 2 black SUVs turned into the lot behind him. Their headlights shut off simultaneously. The county clinic staff didn't ask for a card. They didn't ask for insurance. The second Mateo's wheezing echoed through the entrance, 2 nurses rushed him into the treatment room while a doctor snapped, "Get oxygen on him now." "Ines, stay with me," another nurse said as she guided him down the hallway. A mask covered Mateo's face within seconds. His chest finally started rising deeper. The doctor checked the monitor, then looked sharply at Ines. How long was he struggling like this? "In the ER, they." "You came from Memorial General." Ines nodded. The doctor's expression darkened immediately. 20 minutes later, Mateo's breathing stabilized enough for him to sleep. Ines sat beside the bed, drenched clothes sticking to his skin, when the county doctor entered again holding a chart. "You got here just in time," she said quietly. Ines looked up. "What does that mean?" She hesitated. Then she answered honestly. "It means if you'd stayed in that parking lot much longer, your son might not have survived the night." Something inside Ines snapped. He stood so fast the chair crashed backward. "They made me stand there begging," he shouted, his voice echoing into the waiting room. "They watched him choke." People outside the room turned. An older woman slowly stood from her chair. "Memorial did that to my husband last year." Another man raised his hand. "They turned my daughter away over paperwork." The room shifted. Strangers started talking over each other, sharing stories Ines could barely process. Then the clinic entrance opened. 2 people in expensive suits stepped inside from the black SUVs. "Mr. Reyes," one of them asked smoothly, "we're representatives from Memorial General." Ines immediately stepped between them and Mateo's room. The woman held out a folder. "We believe there was a misunderstanding tonight." "A misunderstanding," Ines repeated. She lowered her voice. "If you sign this resolution agreement, Memorial is prepared to forgive all outstanding medical debt connected to your family." "In exchange for what?" The man beside her answered. "You agree not to discuss tonight's events publicly." Several people in the waiting room went silent. Then Ines's phone buzzed. A message from the younger nurse. Attached was a photo of a hospital document. Across the top, highlighted in red, "Defer if possible." Underneath were intake instructions, targeting uninsured and low-income patients. Ines stared at it. This wasn't one cruel nurse. This was policy. A man across the waiting room lifted his phone and started recording. The hospital representative noticed instantly. "You are not authorized to film this conversation." Another patient raised their phone too. Then another. The county doctor stepped beside Ines. Her voice stayed calm. "If what you're saying is true," she said, staring directly at the hospital reps, "this hospital in serious trouble." The representatives exchanged nervous looks. Then Ines's phone buzzed again. A new text from the nurse. "They know I contacted you. They're deleting records tonight." By the time Ines drove back toward Memorial General, clips from the clinic confrontation were already spreading online. His phone kept vibrating against the passenger seat. People commenting. People sharing their own stories. People asking for names. Rain still pounded the city, but the hospital parking lot was brighter than before. News vans lined the curb, cameras pointed toward the ER entrance. Security guards blocked the doors, while administrators hurried through side exits with folders tucked under their jackets. Ines parked hard near the loading dock and checked his messages again. The younger nurse had sent one final text. "Parking garage, level 2, 5 minutes." He found her standing beside a concrete pillar, hood pulled over her scrubs, hands trembling around a flash drive. "You came," she whispered. "You said they're deleting records." "They already started." She looked over her shoulder before continuing. "They changed intake timestamps," she said. "Critical patients were left unregistered until payment cleared. If someone collapsed before official admission," her voice tightened, "they never counted it as an ER death." Ines stared at her. "You're saying this happened more than once?" She gave a bitter laugh. "More than once." She handed him printed screenshots from security footage. One showed Ines at the front desk carrying Mateo. Timestamp, 8:14 p.m. Another showed Sharon marking the intake system at 8:37 p.m. 23 missing minutes. "They erased the delay," the nurse said. "That's what they always do." Then alarms suddenly echoed through the garage overhead. The nurse went pale. They found out files were copied. Down the ramp, several hospital administrators burst through a security door shouting into phones. One of them pointed directly at the nurse. "There she is." She stepped backward instinctively. Before Ines could react, another voice cut across the garage. "You." Sharon Pike marched toward them with 2 security guards behind her. Her composure was gone now. "You're trespassing," she snapped at Ines. "Hand over any stolen hospital property immediately." Camera lights suddenly flooded the garage entrance. Reporters. Someone from outside had followed the commotion. Questions exploded all at once. Did the hospital deny emergency care? Were records altered? Is Memorial violating intake laws? Sharon looked trapped for the first time all night. "We followed executive directives," she shouted. The entire garage went still. Even the administrators froze. Realizing what she'd just admitted, Sharon covered her mouth too late. Then elevator doors opened behind the reporters. 3 state investigators stepped out holding official cases and suspension notices. One of them raised a document toward hospital security. Memorial General's emergency department is now under immediate state investigation. The investigation moved faster than anyone expected. Within 48 hours, state officials seized Memorial General's intake servers, internal emails, and surveillance archives. Reporters camped outside the hospital day and night while leaked documents spread across every local news station in the state. The story got worse with every release. Executives had been pressuring intake staff for months to minimize non-recoverable emergency losses, while the hospital negotiated a massive corporate acquisition. Internal spreadsheets tracked uninsured patients separately. Emails instructed supervisors to delay formal intake until financial eligibility is confirmed whenever medically possible. One message included Sharon Pike directly. Maintain compliance. Reduce immediate admissions exposure. Another attached a chart showing how unregistered deaths avoided federal reporting requirements. Ines sat beside Mateo's hospital bed at the county clinic, watching the coverage unfold on a mounted television. Federal agents escorted Memorial administrators through flashing cameras. One executive tried, covering his face with his suit jacket. Another was handcuffed. Then Sharon appeared on screen, outside the hospital entrance. A reporter shouted, "Did you knowingly deny emergency care to children?" Sharon tried pushing through the crowd, but another reporter stepped forward. "Your nursing license has officially been suspended pending investigation. Do you have a response?" For the first time since Ines met her, Sharon looked terrified. She said nothing. Back at the clinic, the younger nurse, her name was Lee, gave her official statement to investigators. Halfway through, she broke down crying. "I kept telling myself I needed the job," she admitted, "but after a while, I knew people were getting hurt." The evidence she saved became central to the case. The missing timestamps, the altered records, the intake delays. And Mateo's case changed everything because too many people had witnessed it happen live. The waiting room. The county clinic confrontation. The attempted payoff. The deleted files. There was no way to bury it anymore. A few days later, Mateo finally sat up in bed without oxygen support. He looked smaller than usual in the oversized hospital gown. Quietly he asked, "Dad?" Ines looked up from the chair beside him. "Yeah." "Did I do something bad?" The question crushed him. Ines moved to the bed immediately and pulled Mateo against his chest. "No," he said, holding him tightly. "No, buddy, they did." Mateo nodded slowly and buried his face into his father's shoulder. Outside that room, lawsuits exploded against Memorial General. Former patients came forward daily. Insurance providers froze contracts with the hospital network pending fraud investigations. The corporate acquisition collapsed within a week, wiping out millions from executive compensation packages tied to the deal. State regulators temporarily shut down Memorial's ER entirely. For months, the entrance stayed dark. And Ines, the man security once threatened to drag away from intake, became the key witness in the investigation. The same reporters who ignored him that night now waited outside the clinic asking for interviews. But he only agreed to one. During it, he said something simple. "If they had just helped my son, none of this would have come out." Months later, Mateo returned to the county clinic for a follow-up appointment. The receptionist smiled the second they walked in. "Hey, Mateo," she said, "breathing easier today." Mateo grinned proudly. "Way easier." Ines signed the paperwork without rushing, without apologizing, without lowering his voice. On their way out, they passed the old Memorial General building across the street. The ER entrance remained closed behind locked glass doors. Near the sidewalk stood a newly installed plaque honoring patients harmed by delayed emergency care during the investigation period. Ines stopped walking for a moment. Mateo slipped his hand into his father's. Together, they looked at the building one last time. Then Ines said quietly, "They thought we'd leave quietly. That's what finally destroyed them.